In this video, I am going to be talking about 10 amazing single-player games that are absolutely worth your money. I am sure no one can regret buying these awesome gem of games mentioned on this list. So let's look at the first game on our list. Mafia Definitive Edition. Okay, let's chat about Mafia Definitive Edition. If you've got even a smidgen of interest in classic gangster tales, this game's gonna be right up your alley. It's not just a remake, it's like they took the old game, gave it a giant hug, and turned it into something that feels both nostalgic and brand new. You're stepping into the shoes of Tommy Angelo, a regular cabbie who gets dragged into the mob life after one too many wrong turns. And let me tell you, the story is just something else. It's got that gritty, emotional punch that pulls you in and doesn't let go. Tommy's journey through the criminal underworld feels so real and raw. You might find yourself rooting for him even when he's knee-deep in trouble. The voice acting really nails that 1930s mobster vibe, making every character feel like they're straight out of a classic noir film. The city of Lost Heaven is a sight to behold. It's got that old-school charm with its cobblestone streets, vintage cars, and smoky jazz bars. Driving through the city feels like you're in a living, breathing movie, and the way the city changes with the weather and time of day. It's the kind of detail that makes you want to take a leisurely drive just to soak it all in.
Now you stay straight with me, you're gonna be living the high life, Tom.
Gameplay-wise, it's got a bit of an old-school rhythm to it. The missions are deliberate, the driving feels just right, and the gunplay has that satisfying thud. It's definitely not a breakneck pace, so if you're coming off a more action-packed game, it might take a minute to adjust. But trust me, once you get into the groove, it's all about immersing yourself in the story and enjoying the ride. And the visuals? Man, they did a fantastic job. The remake looks gorgeous with all the modern bells and whistles. The lighting, the details, the atmosphere, it's all there, making Lost Heaven feel alive and vibrant. If you're the kind of person who loves a deep, engaging story wrapped in a beautifully crafted world, Mafia Definitive Edition is totally worth your time and money. It's like a love letter to the original with a shiny new coat of paint, and it's got enough heart to make you want to dive in and never come up for air. So, grab your fedora and get ready to immerse yourself in the gritty world of mob life. It's a ride you won't want to miss.
You won't ever need to worry about me.
Okay then. Welcome to the family.
HIFI Rush. So, HIFI Rush is one of those games that hits you with a burst of energy and never really lets up. When I first fired it up, I was instantly struck by its vibrant comic book style. It's like someone took a page out of a graphic novel and turned it into a game, which is super cool. You play as Chai, who's basically a wannabe rock star, in a world where everything's synced to the rhythm of the music. The whole setup is pretty wild. Imagine a city where even the robots have got some serious groove. I found myself getting hooked not just because of the rhythm-based combat though, that's definitely a highlight, but because the game is just so much fun to look at and play. The combat's a real standout. You're not just smashing buttons or timing your moves to the beat. At first it took me a second to get into the rhythm, but once I did, it was like I was dancing through the fights. There's something really satisfying about nailing a perfect combo and hearing the game's soundtrack react to your actions. It feels like you're part of the music, and that's a pretty unique experience. Chai's got this quirky, endearing personality that makes you want to keep playing. The side characters and enemies all have their own charm too, which keeps things fresh. Plus, the dialogue is genuinely funny and keeps the whole thing lighthearted. The soundtrack is just killer. It's not just background music, it feels like it's woven into the fabric of the game. Every beat and every track feels like it's pushing you forward, making the whole experience feel alive and dynamic. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's got style, rhythm, and a whole lot of fun, HIFI Rush is definitely worth checking out. It's the kind of game that makes you want to keep hitting replay just to catch every beat and every moment. Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 Royal is like stepping into a high-energy anime that you get to control. When I first picked it up, I was already a fan of the original Persona 5, but Royal took things to a whole new level. It's not just an enhanced version, it's a full-blown expansion of everything that made the first game great. The story kicks off with you, Joker, a high school student who's also a phantom thief by night. The way it mixes daily school life with these wild supernatural heists is fascinating. One minute you're navigating the tricky social dynamics of high school, and the next you're diving into the metaverse to steal corrupt hearts and change the world. The narrative weaves these two worlds together so seamlessly, and you really get to know your characters on a deeper level. The game's visual style is one of its standout features. It's like the developers took a bunch of flashy, stylish design elements and threw them all together. Every menu, cutscene, and battle feels like it's straight out of a high-end anime. or a stylish graphic novel. And the color schemes pop and the transitions are slick. It's got this incredible sense of flair that keeps everything exciting and visually stimulating. The way the game presents its story and characters just makes everything feel more dramatic and engaging.
Just so he has the time to take in everything. How pretty!
The soundtrack is another highlight. The jazzy, upbeat tracks are not just catchy, they fit perfectly with the game's overall vibe. Each track adds a different layer to the experience, whether it's setting the mood during a tense moment or pumping up the energy during a fight. The music becomes a character in itself, driving the game's rhythm and making every moment feel more intense or vibrant. What really makes Royal special are the new additions and improvements. They didn't just add a few new features and call it a day. There's a whole new semester with fresh storylines, characters, and palaces to explore. The new confidants and storylines add so much depth to the game. You can build even stronger relationships with your teammates, and their new arcs make the game feel even more immersive. The gameplay remains a mix of traditional RPG elements and life simulation. You're balancing your time between school, social activities, and dungeon crawling. It's a unique blend that keeps you engaged on multiple fronts. The combat is still as strategic and satisfying as ever, with some new mechanics and enhancements that make it even more enjoyable. The new personas and abilities give you more options in battle, allowing for more creative strategies. One of the things I love about Persona 5 Royal is how it handles its themes. It's not just a flashy game with cool mechanics that has a lot to say about society, justice, and personal growth. The story challenges you to think about the nature of right and wrong, and it does so in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking. I can't recommend Persona 5 Royal enough. It's a game that grabs you with its style and never lets go. Whether you're a fan of the original or coming in fresh, there's so much to enjoy here. It's a sprawling, vibrant experience that's packed with personality and heart. So, if you're ready to dive into a game that's both stylish and deeply engaging, Persona 5 Royal should definitely be on your list. Outer Wilds. So, Outer Wilds is like nothing else out there. When I first started playing, I was struck by how different it felt from pretty much any other game. It's this mix of exploration, mystery, and a touch of existential wonder that really sets it apart. You play as a young explorer in a solar system stuck in a 22-minute time loop. Each loop you go through is the same span of time, but you're uncovering more and more about the universe with every loop. It's this constant cycle of discovery and learning, and it's absolutely captivating. The sense of wonder as you explore these beautifully crafted planets is incredible. Every world you visit feels like a unique, self-contained puzzle waiting to be solved. The art style in Outer Wilds is also something special. It's got this charming, almost painterly quality to it. The planets have a sense of scale and beauty that's just breathtaking. The game's visuals make exploring these different worlds a pleasure. It's not about high-fidelity graphics, it's about creating an atmosphere that pulls you into its world. One of the standout features of the game is its approach to storytelling. There's no hand-holding here. You're piecing together the story through exploration and discovery. The lore and history of the universe unfold gradually as you explore, and it's deeply satisfying to connect the dots and uncover the mysteries of this cosmic setting. The narrative is both profound and mysterious, touching on themes of existence and the passage of time in a way that's both thought-provoking and emotionally resonant. The exploration itself is a huge part of what makes Outer Wilds so special. There's this real sense of freedom and curiosity as you navigate through space. You're not just following a set path, you're making your own discoveries and learning through your experiences. The game's design encourages you to explore every nook and cranny, and there's always something new to find. The time loop mechanic adds a unique twist. It's not just a gimmick, it's central to the gameplay and story. Each loop lets you learn more about the universe and refine your approach. It's like each iteration gives you new tools and insights to dive deeper into the mysteries you're uncovering, and the pressure of the loop is there, but it's more about managing your curiosity and time effectively rather than rushing through. What I really loved about Outer Wilds is how it blends exploration with a sense of personal discovery. It's not just about finding hidden secrets or solving puzzles, it's about uncovering the story of a universe that feels alive and ancient. There's a sense of wonder and a touch of melancholy as you explore, making it a deeply immersive experience. So, if you're up for a game that's all about exploration, discovery, and a touch of cosmic wonder, Outer Wilds is absolutely worth diving into. It's a unique experience that stays with you long after you finish playing. Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Alright, so like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, the latest entry in the Yakuza series, which if you've ever played even a single Yakuza game, you know you're in for a ride. But let's get one thing straight from the jump: this game doesn't just rest on the series' reputation. It's taking things to a whole new level while keeping that classic charm and bizarre energy that fans like me love. First up, let's talk about Ichiban Kasuga, our unlikely hero with the hair that defies gravity. He's back, and man, he's just as lovable and goofy as ever, but with even more depth this time around. The game's pushing his story into some uncharted waters, and it's nice to see a protagonist who isn't all grizzled and brooding for a change. There's heart here, a lot of it the kind that makes you root for him, laugh with him, and maybe even tear up a bit when things get heavy. And don't even get me started on the supporting cast. From quirky allies to unforgettable foes, every character feels fleshed out and memorable in their own eccentric way. A shift to a new location, the sunny shores of Hawaii, is such a bold move. The series is known for its depiction of Japanese nightlife, but Infinite Wealth takes us somewhere fresh. You get this mix of familiar Yakuza-style street brawls and a brand new setting to mess around in. It's like someone threw your favorite Yakuza characters into a beach vacation and then dialed up the chaos to 11. The contrast between the bright, beachy vibes of Hawaii and the gritty street battles is such a fun juxtaposition. It feels both completely different and yet comfortably familiar. Combat-wise, it's keeping that turn-based RPG style introduced in like a dragon, but with even more polish and flair. Think over the top, think ridiculous, think summon attacks that make you wonder if the devs were just throwing darts at a board labeled "What the Flark" moments. You've got everything from Ichiban summoning an army of crustaceans to a wild dolphin ride. Yes, really? It's wild, it's goofy, but it's also surprisingly strategic. There's a level of depth in managing your team's skills, weapons, and jobs. Yep, jobs. Just like in a good RPG, your characters can be anything from a bouncer to a sushi chef, each with its own skills and hilarious abilities. But it's not all laughs and absurdity. There's a solid narrative here too. Yakuza games have always been known for their strong storytelling, and Infinite Wealth doesn't skimp on that front. The themes of loyalty, betrayal, and family, both the one you're born into and the one you choose, are all here. There's a great balance between the absurd side quests, like helping a guy who's lost his pants, don't ask, and the more serious main storyline that pulls you in deeper with each twist and turn. The game's got that signature blend of what the hell is going on and wow, I'm really invested in this that the series is known for. You might start out laughing at the ridiculousness of a side quest, and before you know it, you're knee-deep in an emotional subplot that you genuinely care about. It's a delicate balancing act, but Infinite Wealth pulls it off. And let's not ignore the minigames, oh boy, the minigames. From karaoke to arcades to managing a surf shop or betting on chicken races, there's no shortage of ways to kill time and earn some cash. It's these little distractions that make the game world feel so alive and unpredictable. Just when you think you've seen it all, the game throws something new and wonderfully weird your way. Overall, like a Dragon Infinite Wealth isn't just another entry in the Yakuza series, it's a celebration of everything that makes these games special: the heartfelt storytelling, the ridiculous side content, the quirky characters. It's a game that knows how to have fun while also delivering a story that's surprisingly touching. Whether you're a longtime fan or new to the series, this one is definitely worth checking out. Uncharted 4. Alright, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End is kind of like the perfect goodbye letter to one of the most iconic characters in gaming, Nathan Drake. If you've been following his adventures, you know he's this blend of Indiana Jones and your witty best friend who somehow always finds trouble. And man, does this game deliver on all fronts: action, story, and those jaw-dropping set pieces that have become the series' signature. So what makes Uncharted 4 special? For starters, this one's got heart. You've got Nate, who's retired from treasure hunting, trying to live the quiet life with Alina, you know, a normal job, normal house, normal problems. But then, of course, his long-lost brother Sam shows up, and surprise, there's another legendary treasure to chase, more bad guys to dodge, and a whole lot of personal history to unravel. What I love about it is how the game takes its time to let you breathe, to explore the emotional weight of Nate's choices. It's not just about the next big explosion or narrow escape, though don't worry, there's plenty of that too. The game's pacing is just chef's kiss. It knows when to ramp up the action, like when you're in a shootout in a crumbling, centuries-old cathedral or swinging across a chasm with a freaking grappling hook, and when to slow things down so you can really soak in the story. There are quiet moments that stick with you just as much as the loud ones, conversations between Nate and Sam about their childhood, or those little moments where Nate and Elena talk about their future and what it means to give up the thrill of the chase. Gameplay-wise, it's like Naughty Dog took everything that worked in the previous games and cranked it up. The gunfights feel more dynamic with smarter enemies and environments that are a playground for all kinds of tactical shenanigans. You're climbing, sneaking, and swinging around like Tarzan with a gun, and the added freedom in how you approach situations makes every encounter feel unique. And let's talk about the level design. The Madagascar section alone is just wow. It's open, it's lush, and it's got all these little details that make the world feel alive. You can practically feel the mud splattering up from the Jeep tires as you tear through the terrain. But for me, what stands out most is how the game feels like a proper ending. This is a series that's had its ups and downs, but Uncharted 4 lands the emotional punch of seeing Nate's journey come full circle. You see him wrestle with his past, his relationships, and what he really wants out of life. The story doesn't just throw another treasure at you and call it a day, it digs deeper into who Nathan Drake really is and what makes him tick. Visually, it's still one of the best looking games on PS4, and even on PS5 it holds up beautifully. The character animations, the lush environments, and those insane. How did they even do that? Moments like the truck chase sequence that feels straight out of a summer blockbuster make every second of this game a visual feast. And the little details like the way Nate's clothes get wet and dirty or how the sun sets over a pirate cove are just the cherry on top. Look, if you haven't played Uncharted 4, you're missing out on one of the best action adventure games ever made. It's not just a game, it's an experience, one that wraps up Nathan Drake's story in a way that feels true to the character we've come to love. It's got all the twists, all the laughs, all the adrenaline pumping action you'd expect, but with a story that makes you actually care. And when the credits roll, you're left with this bittersweet feeling like saying goodbye to an old friend. Trust me, it's worth every second. Mad Max. Alright, Mad Max, now there's a game that kind of snuck up on everyone. You'd think, hey, it's a movie tie-in, how good could it be? But nah, this game is way more than that. It's like Avalanche Studios took the chaotic energy of the Mad Max films and just ran wild with it, delivering this gritty, dusty sandbox that's somehow both bleak and beautiful at the same time. You play as Max, and if you're familiar with the movies, you already know what to expect: a man of few words, a whole lot of rage, and a burning desire to survive in a world that's lost its mind. The game's got you roaming the wasteland in your souped up car, the Magnum Opus, which you can customize to the nines. And let's be honest, the car combat is where this game really shines. There's something ridiculously satisfying about ramming enemy vehicles off the road, harpooning their tires, and watching them spiral out of control in a cloud of dust and metal. But what surprised me most is how much fun the hand-to-hand combat is. It's got this brutal, visceral feel. You're not just punching dudes, you're brawling, throwing haymakers, and countering like you're in a street fight for your life. Every hit has weight, and when Max delivers that final bone-crunching blow, you feel it. Plus, the combat is seamlessly tied to Max's whole lone wolf in a cruel world vibe, no fancy moves, just pure survival instinct. Now, the wasteland itself is a character in its own right. It's massive, desolate, and honestly kind of haunting. I didn't expect to be this into a barren desert, but the game does a fantastic job of making the environment feel alive, with little details, ruins of old world relics, dust storms that roll in like something out of a nightmare, and scavenging sites that make you feel like you're piecing together the lost story of a dead world. The more you explore, the more you feel like you're part of this weird post-apocalyptic tapestry. And yeah, there's plenty of the usual open world stuff, enemy camps to clear out, races to win, collectibles to find, but somehow it doesn't feel like filler here. There's this sense of purpose in everything you do because it's all about survival, building up your car, and taking down the warlords that rule the wasteland with iron fists. You're not just ticking off boxes on a checklist, you're out there scavenging for fuel, scrap, and ammo because you need it, and that makes all the difference. The game's story might not win any awards, but it's got enough of that raw, apocalyptic flavor to keep you hooked. Max isn't looking for redemption or some noble cause, he just wants his damn car back, and maybe a little peace, or as much peace as a guy like Max can ever hope for. You're not saving the world, you're just trying to carve out your own little piece of it, and I kind of love that. There are definitely moments where the game shows its rough edges, and maybe it doesn't quite reach the emotional highs of something like The Last of Us or Red Dead Redemption 2. But you know what? Not every game has to. Sometimes you just want to be a badass in a leather jacket, speeding through the desert, blowing up enemy convoys, and taking down psychopaths with a shotgun. And for that, Mad Max absolutely delivers. If you're looking for a single-player game that gives you a world to lose yourself in, where every road feels like a battle and every quiet moment is haunted by the threat of what's lurking over the horizon, give Mad Max a spin. It's raw, it's rough, and it's an absolute blast. Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt. Alright, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Now we're talking about a game that's like the gold standard for single player RPGs. I mean, how many games come out and just instantly get put on that best of all time list? But that's what The Witcher 3 did, and it's honestly kind of wild to think about how much it still holds up even years later. You step into the boots of Geralt of Rivia, a monster hunter with a face that looks like he's been through hell and back, and let's be real, he probably has. He's got this gruff, no-nonsense demeanor, but there's so much more going on under that scarred exterior. The dude is constantly wrestling with moral choices, and what I love is that the game doesn't shy away from making you feel the weight of those choices. There's rarely a clear good or bad decision, it's all shades of gray, and you end up questioning yourself more often than not. And let's talk about the world itself. It's massive, like jaw-droppingly huge, but it's not just big for the sake of being big. Every inch of it is filled with stories, secrets, and characters that feel like they're living their own lives, not just waiting around for you to show up. You've got the lush fields of Velen, the bustling streets of Novigrad, the snowy peaks of Skellige. Each place has its own vibe, its own culture, and its own problems. And the side quests? They're not your standard fetch quests. These are fully fleshed out stories with twists, emotional depth, and sometimes endings that genuinely make you pause and think. The combat in The Witcher 3 is a lot of fun once you get the hang of it. It's not just about hacking and slashing your way through, you've got to be strategic. You've got your two swords, one for humans, one for monsters, your potions, your bombs, and your magical signs. It feels like a dance sometimes, dodging and rolling and finding that perfect moment to strike, and when you finally bring down that griffin or vampire that's been terrorizing a village, man, that feels good. But it's not all about swinging swords and casting spells. The dialogue and the characters are where this game really shines. There's a reason everyone still talks about Geralt, Ciri, Yennefer, and Triss like they're old friends. They're written with such depth and nuance that you genuinely care about what happens to them. You'll laugh with them, argue with them, and maybe even shed a tear or two. And then there's Gwent. What started as this little in-game card game has turned into a phenomenon all its own. I can't tell you how many hours I lost challenging random villagers and innkeepers to a game of Gwent when I was supposed to be saving the world. It's a whole mini game that's somehow just as addicting as the main story. Now, I'll admit, The Witcher 3 isn't perfect. The inventory management can get a little clunky, and the combat, while satisfying, might not be everyone's cup of tea. But man, when you're riding through a forest at dawn, the sun's peeking through the trees, and The Witcher 3 soundtrack is just swelling with those haunting melodies, that's a moment that's hard to beat. So if you haven't played The Witcher 3 yet, do yourself a favor and dive in. It's not just a game, it's an experience. One that will stick with you long after you've hung up Geralt's swords and moved on to something else. It's got heart, it's got soul, and it's absolutely worth every minute of your time.
Let me finish telling it.
Evil Within 2. The Evil Within 2, oh man, this one's for the folks who love their games with a side of pure psychological horror. It takes that survival horror vibe and cranks it up to 11. You're back as Sebastian Castellanos, a dude who's already seen more than his fair share of nightmares, but of course the universe isn't done with him yet. He gets pulled back into the twisted world of STEM, where reality is pretty much an abstract concept and everything is either trying to kill you or drive you insane, often both. Now, I know the first game had its fans, but this sequel, it's where things get really interesting. The story kicks off with Sebastian hunting for his daughter, Lily, who he thought was long gone. Turns out she's the key to this whole bizarre Matrix-like simulation, and you're in a desperate race to find her before everything collapses into a hellish abyss. It's got this great blend of personal stakes and apocalyptic dread, and you can feel Sebastian's desperation and determination in every step he takes. The game plays with your head in the best way. One moment you're sneaking through a derelict suburban street, the next you're in some grotesque art gallery where the exhibits are. Well, let's just say they're not your average oil paintings. There's this constant feeling that reality is only barely holding itself together, and at any moment, everything could just warp into something way worse. It keeps you on edge, always looking over your shoulder, never quite sure what's real. The gameplay is tighter this time around too. You've got a semi-open world setup where you can choose how you want to tackle objectives. Maybe you sneak past a pack of creepy crawlers to conserve ammo, or maybe you go in guns blazing knowing you'll pay for it later when supplies run low. The combat is visceral, every shot counts, and you really feel the weight of every decision you make. It's not just about blasting monsters, it's about knowing when to fight, when to hide, and when to run like hell. And speaking of monsters, they're freaky. The creature design is just top tier nightmare fuel. You've got everything from shambling undead types to giant, multi-limbed horrors that feel like they crawled out of someone's deepest, darkest subconscious. There's this one enemy that's a mashup of mannequin parts and human flesh, and every time I heard its unsettling whisper, I knew things were about to get messed up. But what really makes the evil within 2 stand out is how it balances the horror with some real emotional depth. Sebastian isn't just some blank slate. He's a broken man, haunted by his past, desperate for redemption, and throughout the game you see him evolve. Not just as a fighter, but as a father trying to save the one thing that still gives his life meaning. It's a story with some real heart buried under all the horror. If there's a downside, it's probably that it still leans into some classic horror game tropes. You've got your dark corridors, your jump scares, your limited resources, but honestly, that's kind of what I signed up for. It knows what it is, and it leans into it with style. So, if you're looking for a game that's going to mess with your head, keep you on your toes, and maybe even make you question what's real and what's not, The Evil Within 2 is a solid pick. Just, maybe play it with the lights on. Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 is like stepping back into one of those surreal dreams that teeter right on the edge of a nightmare. The kind where nothing makes sense but everything feels weirdly familiar and deeply unsettling. Remedy Entertainment's return to the world of Alan Wake isn't just a sequel, it's a full-blown descent into the dark, twisted rabbit hole that's been lurking in our collective psyche for over a decade. So here's the thing, Alan's been stuck in this shadowy purgatory, the dark place, for what feels like an eternity, trying to write his way out of a never-ending horror story. And trust me, it shows. Dude's got some serious writer's block, and not the staring at a blank page kind, more like trying to avoid getting torn apart by supernatural forces while crafting a perfect escape plan kind. You feel the weight of his struggle in every word, every page you find scattered throughout the game. It's like you're unraveling a story that's still being written, and you're part of the madness. The atmosphere? Oh man, it's thick. Remedy has always been great at creating these eerie, almost otherworldly environments, but here they've absolutely outdone themselves. From the dense, fog-choked forests to the flickering neon lights of a rundown town that feels like Twin Peaks' evil twin, every location is dripping with mood. It's the kind of game where you walk slowly, not because you have to, but because you want to soak in every creepy, spine-tingling detail. The world is alive in a very unsettling, unpredictable way. Shadows move when they shouldn't, whispers follow you down empty streets, and reality feels like it's barely holding itself together. Combat in Alan Wake 2 has this desperate, almost frantic energy. You're not some superhero mowing down waves of enemies, you're a dude with a flashlight and a gun, and neither is particularly reliable. The flashlight is still your best friend, burning away the darkness that clings to the Taken like some unholy armor. But ammo? Yeah, that's always running out just when you need it most. Every encounter feels like a delicate dance between light and shadow, strategy and panic. And when the darkness starts closing in, it's like your heart rate syncs with Alan's. The game's pacing is just chef's kiss. You'll get moments of quiet tension where you're just exploring, piecing together clues, listening to Alan narrate his thoughts in that deep, weary voice of his, and then bam, you're plunged into a frantic chase through the woods, dodging shadowy figures that flicker in and out of existence like bad memories. The game constantly keeps you guessing, never letting you get too comfortable. What really sets Alan Wake 2 apart though is the way it plays with the idea of storytelling itself. You're not just playing a game, you're inside a story that's aware it's a story, a meta-narrative that twists and turns, doubling back on itself in ways that make you question everything you thought you knew. It's like the game is constantly winking at you, whispering, "Are you sure you're getting the whole picture here?" And man, I love that. It makes every discovery, every revelation feel like a hard-earned victory against the dark. If there's any downside, it's that you'll probably finish the game with more questions than answers. But that's always been part of Alan Wake's charm. It's not about handing you the whole picture on a silver platter. It's about making you think, making you question, making you feel just a little bit uneasy, even after you've put the controller down. So if you're up for a game that messes with your mind as much as it does your nerves, that feels like reading a thriller novel with pages missing, then Alan Wake 2 is going to be your jam. Just be ready to leave a light on after you're done, just in case.
There's something I'm forgetting. Something important.
Well everyone, that was all for this video. This one took a long time to make, but I hope you enjoyed it. Now make sure to subscribe to Pixel Dragon and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day.